Now, one of the other problems why what I'm talking about is often not, dawned on a lot of people is because, you see, cruelty to others is, in fact, well documented, obviously, right? The Hunt for Serial Killers, all the movies about it, the Quest for Justice, all the programs. And, of course, in physical cruelty, when somebody's beating somebody up or murdering, you can call physical police, and you can go to court, and you can get physical, in-your-face justice about it. But when it's cruelty to the self, who's going to notice? When it's sadism to the self. But my God, cruelty to the self? If you identify with the Father and the prohibitive aspects overly, then you are a walking criminal to yourself. And I am myself personally, you see, not concerned very much with the utter form of crime. I think it's interesting to study. The study will go on, and it's been recognized. We all recognize it. I am infinitely more interested in the unseen form of cruelty that each person does to their own selves, and that must be studied. If you've embodied it because your parents have been rotten, that's probably where it might originate. And they learned it from their parents and so on. But it must stop. For instance, the mystical, remember we were talking about the healthy yogas of the ancient world where they were trying to, condition out the alien gene. Now today when you feel you're not still enough, you don't have any peace, they even sell you that. So now you're thinking some guru on a bed of nails somewhere, some exploiter, another predator, is going to teach you what you need to do because you don't feel that you can control your mind or you'll be still enough. You know all that kind of yoga? It's nothing more than sadism to the self. It's another, I'm not good enough, need to get to God, tell me what to do. And I impose another authority on me. I impose another system or technique. Perhaps one could say that the only healthy form of yoga is the hatha yoga, which is just physical exercises to keep the body kind of healthy. Okay, I can accept that one. But see, most of the other ones, it's nothing but the same old sadism we've been talking about under another name. And this sadism and necrophilia, the true meaning of the word necrophilia is connected to sadism. It's love of death. It's the thanatos. So when you're not integrating your shadow and you're buying into all this lie that we've been describing, you are basically a lover of the dead. You gain, just like when you peel a scab, you have that sort of morbid, pleasure from peeling a scab. Magnify that many, many, many times. Now there's healthy aspects of that as well. When you see the bully in the school who's pulling the pigtails of the little girl, but the teacher's been observing and then comes and gives him a whack, you get a sort of a perverse pleasure out of that, don't you? So we all have it, but in the psychotic people it's very, very enlarged. That whole feeling that they get a deep and abiding pleasure because they have murdered their own selfhood. The person who's murdered their own femininity or masculinity or who have murdered their own selfhood, well, how do you think they're going to operate outside? How do you think they're going to relate to everyone else? They may have the persona so that they appear to be normal, but the person who has murdered themselves in their life cannot be expected to exist rationally. As I said, if the ego is the ghost that has arisen from the grave of the self, then expect it to act in ghoulish ways. If you leave rotten meat out, expect maggots. Don't blame the maggots. So if you see a body politic, you see, that is rotten in this way, that's why. Because the ego is ruling and the self is dead. The executives are out on holiday. So the office manager has become the king. He's a maniac. He's running around telling everybody what to do. Yes, he opens and locks the doors. He washes the floor. He's very official, and he gets a lot of things done. So, in fact, technically speaking, the corporation is standing. But it's a very punitive place, and you don't want to work there. He's trying to save on light bills. He's bossing everybody around. So the executives have not come in. Spirit is not there. Selfhood is not there. Selfhood has been murdered. And in its place, we have something else. And from that, we get masochism. Masochism is nothing but sadism to the self. It's just a fancy word for sadism towards oneself. And out of that comes horrors. Your narcissism, your obesity, your bulimia, the body piercing, the drug addiction, the alcoholism. All of this is coming out of a deep and intense violence towards oneself that must end if there's ever to be change in the world. And you must develop the science of observing it, not in others, but in yourself. How do you censor yourself? From that comes the sadism that we're familiar with. The war, the rape, the murder, the misogyny, the megadeath. All of that is a mere external version of something inside. And then it extends even from that point out to nature and to animals. But it's all rooted inside oneself. And what's the cocktail? Obesity, anorexia, insomnia, hypertension, obsession with appearance. My God, you're going to have to turn on the television. Obsession with appearance and cosmetic appearance. And then the fitness mania, which is nothing more than another form of sadism. A hard-bodied, as Wilhelm Reich would have easily shown us. And do you notice the mechanicalistic, monotonous repetition of the way that they even present exercise? It's not done in a very yin or organic way. Even the exercise machines that they show you are demonic. And the message that they're sending you about what you think health is meant to be. Routine, mechanical, movements of the body, totally anti-organic and anti-feminine. And there's so many of those. Why? Because they're selling you a message. And the depression and the ADD and the delinquency and the addiction. And look what's buried in the middle of all of that. The chronic dependency, the key. You can't be anything unless somebody else has given you approval. And mostly you don't get the approval, so as the psychologists well know, look what then happens to us when we don't get it. Look what then becomes of us and what we start doing when we don't have that approval from somebody. Look what we turn ourselves into. Now, anxiety is an interesting word. It's used a lot. It's different than fear. Anxiety comes from the German word Angst. But the psychologists in Germany were saying, look, fear is the word that means when you're being attacked from outside. It's the emotion that you feel when there's a legitimate physical attack. Angst is very different. Angst is from within, when there's something about yourself that's in disorder or malaise. That needs to be borne in mind. What we're having today when we talk about anxiety disorders is all rooted in what I've been talking about. And then we have the cures, because of course we're not doing the healthy work to solve the problem. No. As I said, we poison ourselves with toxic foodstuffs full of contaminants and then seek respite for our terrible inner discomfort on a physical level from a leviathan that administers nothing more than further poisons to us in the name of our health. Isn't that a symptom of our psychosis? But we want that, because what's it all really based on? The doctor's another daddy. Are you feeling better now, darling? Oh, yes, doctor. You're feeling like hell, but don't irritate the doctor. Roll up the sleeve. They could tell you to do somersaults and bend over backwards, and people will do it. Because that animus figure is very important. But a priest, pope, politician, doctor, tutor, you see, the whole 9 yards. The expert. Look, we're in submission to the expert. Everyone else is more powerful and more knowledgeable. And we've given our power away to the worst kind of sadists. As we said, we not only go to the medications for the alleviation of the problem, but we often do try Eastern mysticism and various other things, and it's good to study and, try them. But we must never forget that the true yoga is something very different. It is, as Pluto will be describing and showing to people, the cleansing of the psyche. It's psychic immunity. It's psychic cleansing and hygiene. It's sanity.